The character Du can be translated as command, control, governor, or golden mean. It alludes to the ability to govern a territory by extending one's own influence to its confines. The texts define Du Mai as sea of yang meridians because it recapitulates all the yang influences of the organism. In line with its route through the posterior and upper areas of the body, this meridian exerts a great influence on the head, back, and skin, all of them yang areas because they are posterior, upper, and superficial, respectively. The climatic energies that usually affect it are also yang, heat and wind. Du Mai's path draws a vertical axis that, from the coccyx, ascends the spine to reach the vertex, after which it descends to the face to end under the nose. It is interesting to see how the nose reproduces that vertical axis in the face. Physiognomists consider that a person's nose expresses his personality. If Du Mai is disturbed during the period of bone development, it can cause deviations of the spine as well as of the nasal septum. Its daily symptoms often emerge along its course: hemorrhoids, anal fissures, pain in the coccyx, low back pain, neck pain, as far as they are central, as well as affectations of the nose, may indicate a Du Mai pathology. The yang resonance of the Du Mai meridian also explains that many of its 26 points are able to treat both an insufficient irrigation in the upper part of the body, causing, for example, dizziness or visual disturbances, or just the opposite, an excessive fullness in the upper part, causing, for example, headache, vertigo, or epileptic seizures. However, Du Mai being governor, as its ideogram points out, it can also affect the functioning of any organ in the body. Finally, as the maximum yang exponent meridian, this is the only one on which disorders that are of an exclusively psychic nature can resonate. That is, emotional disturbances without any predominant physical symptom, which in clinics is not frequent to find indeed. Being the most immaterial psychic pathology, yang, such isolated psychological pathologies would be resonating on the most yang meridian of the body. In this area, the strength of the axis that Du Mai represents speaks to us in one person of his rectitude, his integrity, his courage, and his incorruptibility in the face of adversity. For the child, the figure of the father is not as important as a parent as it is for being the figure that defines and dictates the laws. The father archetype represents awareness, dominance, power, control, and courage against the drives emerging from the yin. Therefore, not only the child's father, but any figure of authority or who has an ascendant over them, such as a teacher, a coach, an uncle, or a relative, can embody the father archetype. Anyone who offers them stimuli or challenges to overcome, that invites them to interact socially, thus promoting their autonomy. This implies that a person with a well-established Du Mai is characterized by having a clear mind and great capacity for work, by being realistic, sociable, and by having self-confidence. Someone who is valued at a professional and at a remunerative level. But the point is not so much about the real person's abilities as the fact of them having a positive view of their own real abilities, while a realistic assessment of such capacities as well. On the contrary, a person with a weak Du Mai, lacking such valuable heritage of the father archetype, will have to endure an internal pressure that grips him and that frequently overloads his back in the route through which the meridian circulates, each time that, regardless of his real abilities, sees himself facing a test in which he feels examined. A person whose Du Mai is weak may also find it difficult not to let himself be stepped on, and shall have serious difficulties in resisting dry periods, because he will be internally questioning himself about his ability to face adversity. In short, he will lack confidence to feel that he controls the situation, that he controls himself, that he controls the environment. In short, that he controls his destiny. The paternal archetype is the one that also expresses the potential for transcendence, awareness of us that encompasses much more than our individuality here and now. We had commented that in Qigong and Tai Chi, there was an axis that was aligned from the arch of the foot, exactly from the point that is located between the anterior 1/3 and the posterior 2/3 of the sole of the foot, where the point kidney 1, Yang Chuan, is located. This point is closely related to the origin of the 4 extraordinary vessels of the trunk. In the aforementioned techniques, this point aligned with the Renmai 1 Huiyin point of the perineum, where, according to some authors, Du Mai's path begins. Despite the fact that most texts state that Du Mai begins between the coccyx and anus. The meridian ascends through the back to the vertex where Du Mai 20 is located, the third alignment point of Qigong and Tai Chi, whose main ideogram is called Pai Hui, 100 meetings, although another of its ideograms defines it as whole sky. Remember that we were talking about the potential for transcendence. Then, the meridian continues to point Du Mai 26 Renzong in the nasolabial fold. In fact, it is located at the junction between the upper third and the upper 2/3 of the nasolabial fold, at the junction of man with heaven, if we consider the triad earth, man, and heaven. However, the Zhen Ye Jing describes the Du Mai meridian as starting simultaneously from the coccyx, but also from the Du Mai 26 point. Both routes would meet at the vertex point Bai Hui, as if the entire Du Mai meridian was pointing up to the sky. Take note of the images of the Japanese emperor. His clothing is very graphic. Look at that kind of column that projects his head from his head toward the sky. We know that in Chinese tradition, the emperor is called Son of Heaven. This implied that he must be very wise and very good. He has to unite in himself all the virtues to be able to put in contact the celestial designs with what his people should do downwards. Notice how the emperor cap has an extension that projects from Pai Hui, 100 meetings, on the Du Mai meridian upwards. The Du Mai meridian is the one that expresses the father archetype. Ancient Chinese tradition considered that the influence of the father began after birth, when the newborn comes into contact with the air, which is young. Tradition explains that on the 3rd day of birth, and it has to be the 3rd, because the 1 represents heaven, the 2 earth, and the 3 man. The father approaches the child and whispers to him his name. Notice the powerful symbolic meaning of this act. Through the father's verb, does the creative verb from the Bible sound familiar to you? The child goes from being something to being someone. Someone with their own identity, someone with their own thinking, someone with their own destiny, someone capable of facing the world and having a personal projection. This someone is what is transmitted by the archetype figure of the father. So that the verticality resulting from the conscious alignment in the Tai Chi practitioner of the Yongchuan earth point with the Huiyun man perineum point and the Bai Hui heaven Du Mai 20 point is a perfect energetic verticality that promotes the energy flow through the body and also its alignment with the cosmos. Think that man has been able to develop his brain and acquires superior cognitive functions thanks to the erect position. All the force that the neck exerts on the brain in quadrupeds, which causes its retraction, is released with the verticalization which allowed primitive men to have their brain developed. And this view of acupuncture tells us that it is not only by chance that we are the only upright animal with transcendental aspirations emanating from our upper vertex.